Is Carlos Estevez underrated? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back with our second episode of the day from Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what this channel is about and what you can expect from this channel, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length, and Chance Lebo brings you the Locked On Royals postcast, and he goes to you live for about 15 to 20 minutes at the conclusion of each and every game. Want to tell you before we get started that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Well, at the risk of sounding repetitive, because we did have an episode about, 10 hours ago, I wanted to really focus tonight in talking about this pitching staff, especially this bullpen, which did its job against Cleveland tonight. And funny enough, this team that was on a 3-game slide, they've got the pitching advantage in their first 2 games. They lose both of them, and then they win their bullpen game. As we always say in baseball, just stop trying to predict it, because you're always going to be wrong. I am wrong, I feel like, 85 to 90% of the time when trying to predict something. Yes, every once in a while I might get a bullseye, but it's more often than not just throwing a dart into a dark room. And in this game, it's not that I felt it was impossible for this Royals team to win, because Logan Allen's not that great on the other side, and the Royals really had his number last year when they faced him. But they trailed late in this game. They were down 3-2, but Nick Lofton comes through for one of the first times since being really a predominantly a pinch hitter off the bench for this team. He was, I want to say, like 1 for 13, 1 for 14 going into that at bat. He comes through in a big way. It was a risky send with Tyler Tolbert, but you do that 10 out of 10 times. Michael Garcia kind of snaps out of his slump a little bit by roping a double to left, and it sets up Lucas Ursig to go 2. And then the man of the hour, the one we're going to be talking about in this first segment, Carlos Estevez, to slam the door in the 9th. And I love how this will kind of go just all really down the line here for tonight's episode. Like, we're going to talk about that 9th inning. We're going to talk about the next couple of days. And then maybe we'll circle back a little bit and talk about what tomorrow specifically really entails for this Royals team. But Carlos Estevez goes out there in the 9th. And, we've talked about him so many times on this podcast, because a lot of you didn't want him to be the closer about midway through the season. It was, you got to let Lucas Ursig get the 9th inning. I'm done seeing Carlos Estevez, wiggle his way out of jams. He's not that dominant. He's not the most accurate arm. He gets hit around a little bit. He had a rough stretch right out of the All-Star break, gave up that 3-run home run to Kyle Stowers, gave up the home run to Luke Keyshaw in Minnesota. But really on the year, when it comes down to it, I feel he's been incredibly underrated. For a guy, like, if you just were to go to any other fan base and say, would you take Carlos Estevez as your closer? There are few teams out there that would say, no, we're good. There are a lot of teams that would say, yes, we would take the league leader in saves and take 39 of, 45? He's blown 6 saves, but I want to say half of those were in extra innings with the Manfred runner, the ghost runner, if you will. So 3 times on the season, he has blown a game in the 9th inning. When you start it with a clean frame, nobody on base, you got the lead. I can recall one of them being against the Rockies, and that was his first blown save of the year, or the second blown save. It was his first true blown save, because his first one came in Milwaukee, but that was a ghost runner. He blows the save where he gets 2 outs and then 3 runs end up scoring off of him. That was one of the weirdest blown saves I can remember. Most of his struggles, in my opinion, have been in extra innings, or it's been when he's coming in a tie game in the 9th inning and then breaks that scoreless tie. But overall, it's not just the number of saves, because I can see the argument from some people in, well, yeah, he's got a lot of saves, But if you have, 45 saves to lead the league and you blow 10 of them, so you're 45 of 55, would you rather have that, or would you rather have a guy with 30 saves who has one blown save, right? Wade Davis never really had the number of saves that Greg Holland did. Now, Greg Holland also didn't blow many saves, but Wade Davis was so dominant, and every Royals fan out there would say, yeah, I'd take Wade Davis in the ninth inning over everybody else. But I also felt that skewed the image of what a closer really is and really should expect to be, or what we should expect from their ninth inning guy year in and year out. What Wade Davis and Greg Holland did for a number of years is not that easy to find. We all know that. We should know that at this point. And when the Royals went out there and gave Carlos Estevez the contract, there were definitely people that said, it's too expensive for a reliever, and he's bound to regress. But I can't really find a reason why that contract hasn't been worth it. The Royals really struggled before they got Lucas Erceg last year to close out games. James MacArthur was their closer. And now you look at Estevez's numbers. He's appeared in 63 games, so durability has been a big plus for him, and I'll knock on wood for that, don't worry. He's got a 2.45 ERA. It's not everything for a closer, right? What Aroldis Chapman is doing, that kind of goes back to our point. Aroldis Chapman's been probably the most dominant closer in baseball, and he's only got 29 or 30 saves. So Estevez has him by about 9, but he has not been anywhere near as dominant as Aroldis Chapman in his 104-mile-an-hour fastball. He's only struck out 52, so he's pitching more to contact, but his whip is below league average. He's got a 1.84 ERA in his last 15 outings. He's got a 0.00 ERA in his last 7 outings, and he's allowed 2 hits since August 14th. He's really kind of coming on of strong late. I really feel that this is a guy, when you look back on the 2024 season, that was underappreciated. I really do feel that way. Because anytime you have somebody that leads a category, I'm going to say that there's some faulty numbers there, or that he really wasn't that good. No, I feel Carlos Estevez went into multiple situations and multiple scenarios and just handled a 1-run lead with ease. It's not that he's been perfect, because he hasn't been. He's definitely had his fair share of struggles. But I love talking to him every time I get the chance, whether it be an interview, whether it be a one-on-one or just a media scrum. He really lives for being a closer. Like, he loves to go out there and pitch in those tight 1-run games. And as we see with closers, it doesn't always work in your favor. You're not always going to go 1, 2, 3. But man, how many times have we seen the Royals hand him the ball, at least of late, in a 1-run game, and he gets the job done? No, he's not striking out the side. He's not pumping 100, 101, 102 by these hitters. But he's doing a good job now of throwing strikes, and effective strikes at that. And anytime you see 39 saves, he's going to have over 40 this year. Again, I'll knock on wood, assuming that he can stay healthy. He's going to get more than a few opportunities in the final 16 games here. But to have over 40 saves, that's a big milestone for him. And going in the next year, you're not wondering who's going to be closing out games. And I also go all the way back to spring training. He didn't have the typical start to spring training. He had that slow buildup in April and May because he didn't have the start from, first part of February, middle of February until, the first game started. He didn't have that buildup where you get ready, you get into game action, you build up your arm. He had the back problem, which it feels like every Royals pitcher and players had back problems this year. But he dealt with that part of an injury, and it slowed down his progression. And I would have thought that uneven spring training, if you will, that unique spring training, it would have set him back in a pretty big way, and it really didn't. He was trying to build himself up in the first part of the season, and the numbers were still there. It wasn't pretty, but I ask you, and I would love to hear the comments, if you can't have a Wade Davis, if you can't have a Greg Holland, that's just lights out every time they take the ball, what do you want out of your closer? Do you want the guy that can rack up the saves? Like, does it matter to you at the end of the day? If he leads the league in saves at the end of the season, is that what matters most for being a closer? Hey, you did your job the majority of the time. And the Royals bullpen has done a really good job this year preventing those blow-up innings. They have a great save percentage. They don't blow many opportunities, even though we feel like they do from time to time. And Estevez is a big reason why. It allowed some of these other guys to settle into certain roles, and I feel he's been underrated. Now, I've been definitely a big-time supporter of Carlos Estevez. I'll out myself there because I know that a lot of the commenters haven't been as high on him all season long. But at this stage of the season, I'm not going to complain about those numbers. He's leading the league by 3 saves over Robert Suarez and leading Andres Munoz of the Mariners by 5. He's got 39 saves, and the Royals have 74 wins. You do the math. He's been very, very effective this year, and I'm glad that going into the next year, you're not going to worry about who's having to close out games. Well, that's going to do it for our first segment tonight. When we come back, let's talk about what the next few games may look like. The Royals have one more in Cleveland to wrap up the season series, and they'll head to Philadelphia for a 3-game set against the Phillies. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. 2 sponsors I want to tell you about, beginning with FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And for my pick, I'm going to give you 2 looking ahead to Sunday in the NFL. Go with the Chiefs and the Eagles here. I'm going to take the over on receptions for Hollywood Brown with Jalen Royals and Xavier Worthy likely still out. I feel Hollywood Brown should have a big game. And then I'm going to take the over on receiving yards for A.J. Brown. Don't see him having as poor of a performance as he did against the Cowboys in week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. Our next sponsor I want to tell you about is Nutrafol. And you've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should get Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just the hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. I felt this would be a good time to almost iron out what the next 4 games are going to look like, especially coming off of a bullpen game, because I already know how it's going to go down. The Royals tomorrow are going to be turning to Stephen Kolek, and we'll dive into that in the third and final segment. But when you go with a bullpen game where you use really all the guys we talked about this morning, that kind of blew me away that everybody they went through down the line, we actually talked about saying who was going to be available and who they might go to. You had Jonathan Bowen starting the game tonight as the opener. You turned on Hel Serpa. Then you go to Sam Long. Then it was Luinder Avila, who I'm just continuously impressed by. I love watching Luinder Avila pitch, and he's not really a big dude. Like, he's 6'3", but pretty skinny, so I don't know if the nickname Big Lou is going to stick. But if he pitches well, we can come up with a great nickname for him because I love the stuff that he has to offer, the curveball, the sinker, really been placing it well, and he was a big reason why they won tonight, and he got his first big league win, so props to him. He's just a couple weeks removed from turning 24. So not quite on his birthday, but I'm sure he can celebrate that tonight in the clubhouse and back at the hotel in Cleveland. But you went to Luinder Avila there. Then you go to Lucas Erceg to pitch 2 innings, and then you throw Carlos Estevez. I'd imagine Estevez is still available to throw tomorrow if you were in a save situation. Lucas Erceg's probably not going to be available. I doubt that Luinder Avila is going to be available, so you can count him out there. Angel Serpa's probably not available. That would be 3 straight days for him, though we'll see. Sam Long should be available. He only threw to a couple of batters there. John Schreiber did not throw. Look for him to be a big part of tomorrow. But what I really want to say is that in these next 4 games, the Royals are going to have some 7th, 8th, or 9th inning that is going to be given to someone you're not expecting it to. Because the reality is they can't throw Lucas Erceg and Carlos Estevez every single night. And so I'm getting out ahead of the questions that are bound to come in when the Royals are in Philadelphia. And it's a 2-run lead for the Royals. And here comes Sam Long to pitch, or here comes Daniel Lynch. And the questions are going to come flooding in. Why in the world is Q throwing this guy in this spot? And I just go back to this bullpen game. They're going to be a little bit worn down by Sunday when they're in Philadelphia. And that is a freaky lineup they're going to be going up against. I mean, the Phillies have bashed in the head of the New York Mets for all 3 games of that series. I mean, it's been ugly. And now the Giants are right on the heels of the New York Mets. But the Phillies, despite losing Trey Turner and Alec Boehm, they have just been bashing in every Mets pitcher for all 3 games of that series. Now, I think there was some good starts for the Mets, and their bullpen was able to handle things in the first and second game. So maybe I'm trying to overreact to game 3 of that series. But the Phillies just looked in control. So I go to that series probably tomorrow as well. You are putting a lot of faith in Stephen Kolek to look good against that Guardians lineup. I mean, he's got a ton of pressure tomorrow. But this is more so about the weekend. When they go to somebody and it's a high leverage spot and you're wondering why, you just refer back to what this game is. Now, I'm putting the ball in the court of the Royals offense. Maybe limit the amount of high leverage spots that there are tomorrow and over the weekend. Because if you can do that, you can give some rest to the high leverage guys that then can have maybe a day or 2 of rest before you need them on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Philadelphia. I mean, best case scenario for the Royals is not that Stephen Kolek throws 7-8 shutout innings tomorrow. I'll take it. I'm not counting on it. But what can be great is what Stephen Kolek got last Saturday. He was able to work 7. Why? Because he had a 5-0 cushion when he took the ball in the second inning. You give him that type of run support, and he can eat those innings. I don't care if you win when it's all said and done like 11-6 or 12-6. If you can save that bullpen just a little bit, then it's not going to be this very tricky situation in the 7th and 8th inning when Jonathan Bolin gets the ball against the meat of the order in Philadelphia. Because this late in the season, you can't really afford to roll the dice that many times with your lower leverage guys. It's a good test. And as much as I would love to see Luinder Avila get that test in Philadelphia, if the Royals are trying to win as many games down the stretch here, you're wanting to have Lucas Erceg and Carlos Estevez as fresh as possible. Now, tomorrow, I would say that as Lucas Erceg is going to be down, Angel Serpa is going to be down, Jonathan Bowen's probably going to be down as well. John Schreiber, Daniel Lynch, those are 2 guys that are going to need to pitch well tomorrow. Stephen Kolek, he's at the top of that list, right? He's going to need to go out there and probably toss a quality start, something he's done twice in his first 2 starts with the Royals. But it's a Guardians lineup that has been giving Royals starting pitching some fits. Now, Noah Cameron was great for 7, but that lineup still got him for 2. And that's frustrating, right? So in those first 2 games, Ryan Berger gets bombed, but Noah Cameron looks lights out, but still that offense is pesky enough to get a few runs off of you. That's fine if it happens to Stephen Kolek tomorrow, but the offense has to be the one to drive the bus. Maybe tonight can be that leverage point where they got their confidence back, they got their rhythm back a little bit. You'll be facing a damn good arm in Gavin Williams, who's got a 3.17 ERA on the season. He's going to be throwing it hard. He's going to be throwing it up in the zone. But the Royals need to be able to pounce on him. Like I said, 16 games to go. You need to have your best version of this offense. And tonight, it wasn't the best version of this offense, but they came through late, something they were not able to do on Tuesday and something they never had the chance to do on Monday. So that's what I am looking for over these next 4 games. And there's just probably going to come a time where you're relying on Sam Long, or you're relying on Jonathan Bolin, or you're relying on Luinder Avila to get you 3 big outs, especially in Philadelphia. Now, I already looked ahead to what the rotation is going to look like for Philadelphia over the weekend. And fortunately, they're going to be dodging Christopher Sanchez, and they're going to be dodging Ranger Suarez. So they'll see Walker Buehler on Friday, who was cut by the Red Sox. He'll be throwing in that first game. Then they'll see Taijuan Walker on Saturday, and then they're going to be seeing Aaron Nola on Sunday. A little bit of a teaser before the Chiefs and Eagles on that Sunday afternoon. But, of course, for a lot of people here in Kansas City, if the Royals lose these next 3 games, maybe you're not even tuning in on Sunday. You know I will be. I'll probably be watching that over the NFL games on Sunday. But that's just what I'm going to be keeping my eye out for, because I know that the Royals already ran into it on their previous homestand when the Rangers were in town, and Sam Long's just throwing 40, 45 pitches in that meltdown of a ninth inning, the only game they lost to the Rangers this year. And I asked you after the game, and it was, we're trying to, get through this game and keep some of our bullpen guys fresh. And the Royals, unfortunately, did not keep their bullpen fresh on Monday. Noah Cameron saved him a little bit on Tuesday, but then you have the bullpen game today. A lot of guys are going to be down tomorrow. You got to be trusting Stephen Kolek to have a really good game, and you got to be trusting this offense to find some way to break through off of the Guardians' best arm and Gavin Williams. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about tomorrow and the pressure that Stephen Kolek has on his shoulders. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, coming to you for the second time today. We didn't have an episode last night, but as promised, we were going to do 2 today. You can always check out our episode from earlier this morning, talking about the season being on the ropes, and tonight going over what happened in their 4-3 win over the Cleveland Guardians. Before our final segment, I want to tell you about Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply, so again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. I really hate doing this for such a young pitcher like Stephen Kolek, and he's not as young as Noah Cameron and Ryan Bergert out there. I mean, he's a 28-year-old second-year guy, but he's relatively new to big league baseball. And, on the season, he has thrown over 90 innings. Like in tomorrow night, he's not pitching in some hectic environment. It will be his first road start with the Royals. His first start at home was against the Tigers. That was a tough lineup, 6 innings, a 1-run ball. And then he fortunately had the offense just pile on with run support last Saturday against the Twins. So he's just making his way around the American League Central. This will be his third start, all 3 teams against AL Central foes. But you want to talk about how big tomorrow is. And we'll see what happens tonight at the conclusion of the Mariners and the Cardinals series. Boy, the Cardinals have just not done the Royals any favors so far. But the Royals haven't done anything to help themselves out either. But the reason tomorrow is so big is I go back to our Monday episode after the Royals got thrashed. And we said, they got to win the next 3. Yes, it would have been great to win the season series. That's not possible at this point. But splitting with the Guardians is still a very important thing for this team, as we would be down to 15 games after tomorrow evening. If you split with Cleveland, you leave town ahead of them. And now you're done with Cleveland, which we've said before. It's just we can't explain it. They don't play well when they go to Ohio and take on Cleveland. They actually do pretty well when they take on Cincinnati. Just ask Dairon Blanco. But this Royals team has an opportunity tomorrow, at best, to be 2 games back of a playoff spot. I know the Rangers have been playing just incredible baseball. I tip my cap to them. Know a couple of Rangers fans, but they sweep the team with the best record in baseball. And now they'll head to take on the Mets in New York, and the Mets have been scuffling. So still got to keep an eye on New York. But if the Cardinals find a way to win tonight, I'm not really counting on the Angels to do much, but we saw the Angels have a little bit of pop in that lineup. They're going to be in Seattle tomorrow, but that's best case scenario, is that the Royals could end tomorrow night 2 games back, which is what they were to begin that Cleveland series anyway. And even though you lost 4 games there where you could have kept yourself in the race, gained some ground, maybe buried Cleveland, leaving town ahead of Cleveland is still a success considering how game 1 and game 2 went. You were outscored 12-2 in the first 18 innings at Progressive Field. And tomorrow, if you can leave with a win where Stephen Kolek a newly acquired arm goes toe-to-toe with Gavin Williams, the ace of the Guardians, and you find a way to win, you talk about some serious momentum going into Philadelphia, and boy, are you going to need it. Baseball's baseball, and it's unpredictable, as I'm going to always say on this podcast. But if you go into Philadelphia losing tomorrow, which you're going to be expected to, the odds are going to tell you that the Guardians are favored, and very well should be. But if they can use tonight and take it into tomorrow and split with this Cleveland team and be 3 games over 500, and look at the pitchers you're facing in Philadelphia over the weekend, 2 of them with ERAs over 5. Not saying it's everything. We clearly know that's the case with this Royals offense. But you have that opportunity once again. And then you've got a homestand where you get the Mariners and you get the Blue Jays. A Mariners team you need to keep pace with, and you will have your shot. And as I've said before, and I'll say again, they have to be bare minimum 3 games back when that Seattle series begins. Because obviously a sweep would put them tied with Seattle. And that's still a long shot, but that's the bare minimum. You can't be 5 games back with Seattle coming to town, because a sweep, you're still 2 games back, and that's still a huge uphill battle for the final 3 series of the year. But that's where this team needs to be. And tomorrow almost can swing that momentum a little bit. And maybe I'm sounding like a guy who's going back on his word, because I also said momentum, in baseball at least, is only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. And it really depends on how you view Stephen Kolek. Is Stephen Kolek a good arm, or is he somebody you're expecting to go 5 tomorrow? Keep things competitive, keep things close. And I'm not sure the Royals want to get into a bullpen battle with Cleveland tomorrow, because you had to burn a lot of guys today just to get through it. But it's a good thing the Royals won that game, because to lose a bullpen game like that, if Ursig or Estevez would have blown it in the 8th or the 9th inning, we'd be feeling sick right now. But they're still alive. They're still breathing. Their season is still very much on the ropes. Don't get it twisted there. Their life meter is still blinking, as we said in today's episode. But back-to-back wins to close out what looked to be a putrid and ugly 4-game series, that can give you some confidence going into a hornet's nest at U.S. Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. That'll be one of the tougher environments the Royals have faced all season long. And the Phillies fans, I should say, just are rowdy. They're absolutely rowdy. They know October's right around the corner. They know their team's playing well. They just buried the Mets, a team they really hate. So maybe you can have that emotional fall off where now the Royals get to come to town, and they're not the Mets. They don't hate the Royals in the same way they hate the Mets. But we'll see what happens in that series. It's fun to have competitive September baseball, and you're still in it, and you're playing in fun environments. It really hasn't been that fun of an environment in Cleveland. There haven't been many people that have shown up for this series, but I'm not going to be pointing the finger and laughing, because there's been multiple games, weekday games like they are right now in Cleveland, where there hasn't been a big crowd at Kauffman Stadium either. So I'm not going to point the finger at Cleveland when I know they could come right back and say that the Royals are doing the exact same thing, that there wouldn't be much of an environment if these teams were playing in Kansas City. Though if it was on a weekend series, who knows? Maybe both these teams would have packed places. But we know Philadelphia is going to be packed. It's going to be rowdy. It's a weekend series. And the Royals absolutely need to find a way to squeak out of Cleveland with a win tomorrow. And it is going to be such an uphill battle. But for this team to pull off a miracle, like some of you out there are still hoping they can, you got to win tomorrow. Not a must-win game. I'm not going to say it. I'm not ever going to say it unless it's a playoff game. But it's an important one. And there's a lot of pressure I'm putting on the shoulders of Stephen Kolek. But more than that, I'm putting pressure on this offense. You need to be the one to take the pressure off of Stephen Kolek. And you are facing a great arm, an arm that you have a ton of history with, but an arm that is the best you have faced so far in this series. He's better than Logan Allen. He's better than Joey Cantillo. He is better than Slade Ciccone, right? I know I mispronounced it, and I might have done it again, to be honest with you. It's a tough name to pronounce is what I'm getting at here. But Gavin Williams, he's elite. He's a great arm. He's got a powerful fastball, big frame. This Royals offense needs to be ready to go, and Stephen Kolek needs to be ready to pitch with some run support. Well, that's going to do it for our second episode of the day on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second Find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we will wrap up our thoughts for the season series finale in Cleveland, and look ahead to that 3-game series in Philadelphia. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.